As the founder and president of Sustainable Harvest International, I have the good fortune to work for the survival of small-scale family farms and also tropical forests, both of which I think ultimately will be necessary for the survival of our species as a whole. Sustainable Harvest International is focused specifically on slash and burn farming. For those of you who aren't familiar with slash and burn farming, it's what it sounds like. A farmer will go to an area of forest, cut it, burn it. The ash that's left will allow the farmer to grow crops for maybe a year, but then they have to move to a new area, cut that, and burn that. I think it's a form of farming that was sustainable at one time when the population was smaller and when the land was distributed more equitably. But now farmers have to go back after a short time and cut what has grown back of the natural vegetation, burn it again, and each time they repeat the cycle, they lose more of the topsoil, and there is usually not a lot of topsoil to begin with. So eventually, the farmers find that the natural vegetation will not grow back anymore, the crops won't grow anymore, and then they either have to move to cities where the opportunities are not very good usually, or they have to move to where there's virgin forest and start the process over again there. And so that's why you get situations such as here. This is the Cerro Silva Biosphere Reserve in Nicaragua, where the farmers are now going in and burning that protected forest. Or here in Panama, this is Chagres National Park in Panama. It's the watershed for the Panama Canal. That's the lake there that feeds the canal. And again, the farmers are going into this national park, which is supposed to be protected, and burning it. And it's not that they are bad people or that they don't care about the environment or about the forest. They really do. It's simply that they don't see another way to feed their children. And I would do the same thing, and probably all of you would do the same thing also if it was a matter of your children eating. So there are efforts to try to help farmers get an alternative to slash and burn farming that would allow them to grow on the same land every year and not have to clear more of the forest. But in many cases, these projects are giving chemicals, agrochemicals, chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides to the farmers as an alternative, and that over time, I think also will destroy the land and their ability to feed themselves. And in the short time, the pesticides also cause a lot of illness, the poisoning of many of the farmers, many children born with birth defects because their parents are exposed to these chemicals. So my organization, Sustainable Harvest International, is following a different path and alternative that I feel is healthier for the planet and for the farmers. The way we work is to hire local extension agents or field trainers in each of the countries where we work. And each of our field trainers will work with a group of 30 to 40 farmers and visit them every week or two for approximately 5 years and take them through a 5-phase program, planning with each farmer what they'd like to do on their farm. So each farm is a little different. And then helping them to learn sustainable and organic farming practices that allow the farmer to grow anywhere from double to 8 times as much as what they previously were growing, and grow it on the same land every year so they don't have to clear more of the forest. We start by teaching these sustainable techniques for increasing production of their traditional staple crops so that they're learning new techniques for the crops that they already are familiar with. And then we help them diversify their farms so they can produce a healthy diet for themselves. So even when money can run out, they always can feed themselves a healthy, balanced diet. And the last phase of work we do with the families before they graduate is focused on adding more biodiversity to the farms. This also includes planting trees onto the farms as another crop and for environmental purposes. And this last diversification of the farms is also focused more on increasing the cash income from the farms so that the farmers do have some money to buy the other things that they can't grow for themselves on their farms. And then after that, they graduate from the program. We provide them with some training on how to share what they've learned with other farmers and some training in community leadership. And we find that each family that graduates from our program then goes on to not only be self-sufficient themselves years after they leave our program, but they also are each training an average of 7 more farmers. So there's a very large ripple effect happening as the farmers graduate from the program. And this is just an example of one farm. This is in Panama. It belongs to a man named Demetrio. And you can see where he's growing his traditional crops like corn and beans, as well as new crops like bok choy that he sells at some of the restaurants. This is his coffee that's growing in a solar dryer, which provides more income for his family. This is the bok choy, the carrots, where he's learned to grow them in terraces on the hillside. This is his fish pond, which feeds into a rice paddy. Again, all working together to create a healthy ecosystem and sustain the family. And more we're seeing, this is another farm in Panama, and again, this farmer used to grow 2 or 3 crops. He used to make $25 a year, $25 a month. Now he's growing 20 to 30 different crops. He's making a couple $100 a month, and he's doing all of this in a way that preserves the forests, helps to stabilize the climate, and creates biodiversity right on his farm. And though Sustainable Harvest International is still a relatively small and not very well-known organization, we have made some big changes in the world, and we could accomplish exponentially more with additional support. Thus far, we have directly helped more than 10,000 people in Central America to get themselves out of poverty through sustainable farming practices that also preserve the rainforests. Together, they have planted 3.5 million trees and converted 17,000 acres of degraded land to sustainable, productive farmland. We also believe these 10,000 farmers are helping at least 70,000 of their neighbors to replicate their success. With additional support, I believe we could have a positive impact on most of the world's 2 billion rural poor in ways that contribute to a healthier planet for all of us. So I hope you will consider joining us in this effort. Thank you.